Yeah, he's talking about libel and court cases. Now, I gotta sort of show you a couple of things before we move on, because I can see there's no chat today, but I got this tweet to this account from Luke Stanger. Luke Stanger. I warn he warns me that I will hold him personally responsible for any libelous and untruthful content on this show tomorrow, which is now, and I will ensure these matters are also referred to the police and my lawyers as part of their ongoing work for this matter. Now, I was pretty shocked by that. I was wondering if he wrote that himself, but then this morning I got this letter from the law firm Mishcon de Rea, who are a pretty expensive outfit as far as I've heard. It's saying, we understand that this morning's broadcast of Not the Andrew Marr Show will include a discussion on should Luke Akehurst be expelled for supporting Blairite thug Luke Stanger. We hear from Stanger's victims. Anyway, they've written this letter to me this morning, and they're saying that their client, Luke Stanger, says these allegations are false. And then they sign off here saying, if our client is defamed on the show, he will have little option but to take legal action to protect his reputation, the full costs of which he will seek to recover from you. So, you know, someone like me who's not particularly, not really a legal expert. I mean, I would like it if there is anyone from Mishcon de Rea watching the show. I know people have put their hands up already, but if anyone else, if you're from Mishcon de Rea, please let us know you're there, and I'll unmute you and we can have a chat maybe. If not, I'd just like to, if you're not here, then I'd just like to show this story from the Law Society Gazette, which I worked on as a sub-editor. It just says, Mishcon accused of turning a blind eye to £3 million of potentially tainted cash. And the Law Society Gazette, I know they have good legal advice and libel lawyers who would go through all their stories. So just to let anyone from Mishcon de Rea know that we are aware of the legal impact of this. Yeah, so I'm going to play a clip from the Al Jazeera show called Labour Files, and this is the clip here.
He's one of those people that just seems to be able to act with impunity, that whatever he does is going to be acceptable to party officials. And you can't help being suspicious, really, about, you know, who's backing him, who's supporting him. You know, how does he manage to continue in the way he does?
After multiple complaints are filed, the Labour Party suspends Stanger. The party sends Stanger a questionnaire inviting him to respond to the allegations. Stanger rejects the accusation that he has broken any of the party's rules or codes of conduct. Metadata in the Labour files reveals that Stanger didn't write the letter himself.
Okay. Okay. So this shows that the author of what I've been looking at by Luke Stanger is another Luke Akehurst.
Luke Akehurst is an influential figure in the Labour Party and now sits on the party's National Executive Committee. He's also a key figure in the pro-Israel lobby, a director of We Believe in Israel.
Oh, my word. So the author of those documents, surprise, surprise, is Luke Akehurst.
Luke Akehurst is known to be the anti-Corbynista of all anti-Corbynistas.
Right, joining me is Pamela Fitzpatrick, who's been on the show many times. Thank you for coming on, Pamela, and solidarity with you. I was horrified by the documentary, and I had no idea of what was going on and what happened to you. I mean, you kept all this very quiet. We're not going to talk about the details of it because of that threat, but anyone who wants to see the documentary, you can get it on YouTube. I'm sure you can Google it and find it. Now, what did you think when you? I mean, that clip where you read the letter that says the person behind the metadata of that letter was Luke Akehurst. How did you feel when you read that?
Well, there's two things. A lot of what was revealed in the programme, and I have to say it only touched on the surface of what's happened to me or what's been done to me over 6 years, but it did reveal some of it. But I wasn't aware of the Luke Akehurst connection. And what you see there is me with the realization of what this means, of how far this goes, because I've always felt that it's organized. And I've been really kind of, I suppose, gaslighted is the word, like I'm a conspiracy theorist, that, you know, oh, you're imagining it, you're hysterical, you're this. Even people who are kind of sympathetic couldn't quite believe that it's organized. And what this program does, and certainly in my case, have evidence to show it, that my MP was involved at a very early stage, despite the fact when people raised with him, he was writing letters of support to the governance and legal unit. So it's a really strange thing. And then having Akehurst, everybody knows how powerful he is currently in the party. Now, like Duncan, because there's such a lack of transparency in the Labour Party, I have no idea who was on the panel to expel me. I've never been told that. I've done multiple subject access requests and they have not provided it to me. And I think it was Greg in that documentary said that the party is lawless, but it's not lawless. It is using what rules it has to punish and intimidate people according to their political beliefs. And that is what happens in oppressive states. And we should be very, very frightened. And now with you getting a letter this morning, Crispin, most people, so I've been defamed multiple times. I know many people on this show probably have. Most of us cannot access even the high street solicitors because it's too costly. To get Mishcon de Rea, they are the solicitors of the royal family. They cost a fortune. Somebody's put out of bed on a Sunday morning to send you a letter, Crispin, and that's to intimidate you to not have this on your show. So what I would ask, I mean, as far as I know, Stanger works in a hotel. He's been unemployed for some time. Who is paying for his solicitors? And this is what is really frightening when you realise what you're up against. And that's what I realised, that's what you see on that show. And it is horrific. And as I think John said earlier, or somebody said, what's happened to the Labour Party? We have a system where they are unaccountable. Now, they think they're unaccountable in law because there's been some bad cases that have gone. So they will give the impression that the law does not apply to them. That's not true. And just with Lisa, when she was talking about her heart condition, and yet, despite her telling them that, they've still expelled her. Now, the Labour Party does have a duty of care to its members. And I hope, Lisa, get in touch with me because we can have a chat about it. If Crispin, if you could put her in touch with me. So it is really frightening. I don't know where we go, because if you're defamed, it then is repeated. So it becomes truth and we can't do anything about it. You complain to the Labour Party, they do nothing about it. They don't care. They're more likely to punish you as the victim than the person perpetrating this. So we're getting to the situation where you can have thugs actually intimidating ordinary, decent people, and you can do nothing about it. Where does this happen? Think back in history where this has happened. It's really frightening. We really need to sort of tackle this, but how is another matter, really. So I want to know who's funding Luke Stanger. Who's paying for that? How is it he has access to these lawyers? It's not going to be pro bono. Some big law firms do pro bono work if they think it's a good cause, but they wouldn't in a defamation case because that risks huge costs. Anyway.
But I mean, we get it, but we've had that. There's this thing called a slap, isn't there, where they try and just quieten you down with a thing. But even that would have cost money, wouldn't it, to get that letter sent out?
A letter before action. So a letter before action, if you're doing from an ordinary solicitor, probably going to cost about £250. But from a solicitor like that, it's going to be a lot more. And they'll have done other work. So you're talking about big money. And he's been represented by solicitors before, I understand. They've turned up at police stations. I don't know that that's true, but I'm told that. And if that is the case, none of us, even if you're on a fairly decent salary, can access lawyers like this. So this is really sinister. I'm sorry, we have to speak out about this. We need to be careful because nobody wants to be sued. It's a horrible, stressful, costly thing, but we should be able to speak out on the truth. Now, Al Jazeera, I know because I spent a lot of time with them and they made sure they were meticulous in checking things. For me, I can't speak for other people, but they were meticulous. And they will have had lawyers that will have gone through things. So it's interesting that Mishcon have threatened you rather than going for Al Jazeera. I don't know if they have, obviously, maybe they have as well. But obviously Al Jazeera have got a lot more money than you have, Crispin, I'm assuming.
Well, I haven't, just so Mishcon Surveyor know it, I don't have anything. I don't own a house. I have no assets at all. So if you want to take me for anything, you can have my hat and my jacket with the sequins attached. And if that's any good to you. Yeah. But I don't know if that will pay for the letter that Stanger.
Yeah.
But for Stanger, I don't even know if that would pay for it. My sequin jacket might not cover that, I'm afraid.
I'm going to
bring on. Yeah, I'm going to bring on Becky. If you stay on, I'd like to bring on Becky Massey, who was also on the documentary. Oh, sorry, I've made a mistake here with the old spotlighting. Don't worry. How are you doing, Becky?
I'm fine, Crispin. Thank you very much.
Now, I remember a Zoom that we did on this show, or a similar kind of show that I was hosting, and you pointed out to me that I was avoiding talking about the issue of anti-Semitism in the party, and it did change everything for me. And subsequently, a few weeks ago, I met Ken Livingstone, who was in a very, very bad way, and it actually makes me a little bit emotional to think about how bad Ken Livingstone was. The impact of these smears on him is driving me as well to do this show at all, because it's wrong that someone who's so good is put down in that way. Becky, I had no idea about your situation, and seeing the documentary, it was heartbreaking to think how many years you've been made to feel like shit, really, by these people. And you don't look too bad for it. How have you managed to get through that?
Lots of face cream.
Oh, well done. I'll learn that one. I'll do that one myself. I think I need it. Look at the state of me. Anyway, so honestly, I mean, it's heroic what you've done, and you will be on the next calendar. You are on the next calendar.
That's all I care about, Crispin.
Well, I just find it incredible. I'm being threatened to include any discussion on something that is so appalling and has had nothing of anyone from the media has picked up on it. And no one's talking about it. And how did you get through that period? Have you got to? I mean, not that you're through it. I mean, it's still there, but how have you managed to keep sane?
Well, firstly, obviously, I've got many fine comrades, and comradeship and solidarity takes you through that. I want to pick up on a couple of things that Pamela has said. I've endured, oh goodness me, years of online abuse from Luke Stanger. I don't know how many screenshots are sitting on my computer, but believe me, if necessary, I'll assemble them all for the viewing public. The programme that Al Jazeera did, firstly, it was a good expose, and it exposed really, in my mind, it exposed the network, and I think that was alluded to in the programme. And Pamela has raised the very important question of who is paying for this. I have looked at Luke Stanger's Twitter feed this morning, actually, where he says, I'm instructing my lawyers overnight and they will be sending a letter, which of course has happened. You've shown the letter. Now, this person, as far as I know, from what I've seen on Twitter, he's had a little job at McDonald's, he had a little job at a hotel in Gatwick Airport, he's now working on the floor at Gatwick Airport. He does not come from a wealthy family as far as I know. So there is a very big question about who is funding this. And I've had a little think about what has happened to me along the way. Because the abuse that I was receiving online became intolerable, I reported Luke Stanger a number of times to Sussex Police. My understanding from the police is that he was interviewed by the police. He was told the distress that he was causing his victim and to just stop. But of course, it went on. And eventually, the final time that I reported more further abuse to the police, Luke Stanger had a solicitor, a man called Daniel Burke, write a letter to Sussex Police on his behalf, pointing out why, in the solicitor's view, he hadn't crossed the sort of legal threshold. So I looked up Daniel Burke, and he works for a firm of solicitors in Manchester. And from what I can find from Googling him, he is the chair of the Zionist Central Council of Greater Manchester, and he is the director of UK Lawyers for Israel. So some solicitor in Manchester wrote to Sussex Police on behalf of Luke Stanger. As you've mentioned, we've now got the involvement of a massive law firm, Mishcon de Reya, and it was also shown in the Al Jazeera programme, the letter that Mishcon de Reya had written, I believe, once Luke Stanger had been expelled by the Labour Party. And I think that letter was written to aid the expulsion not being carried out. I may have the timeline wrong there. We have Luke Akehurst, director of We Believe in Israel, writing Stanger's letters for him. We have my MP and Stanger's MP, Peter Kyle, writing a reference to Stanger. Peter Kyle is Vice Chair of Labour Friends of Israel. I will also say, like Pamela, I saw other documents, including other letters from my MP that were not touched on in the programme, but I've seen them. I also know that Stanger is closely associated with Sussex Friends of Israel. He's posted on his Twitter line when he was taken on a holiday to Israel. And one word seems to keep popping up. And it's not my word, It's actuality. And the word is Israel. So in the interest of transparency, if Miss Condurea are watching this, do tell us. Do tell us who's paying your bills. Maybe it is Luke Stanger. Maybe he has a little inheritance tucked away that we don't know about. If you want transparency, tell us. Right.
It's a good point. That's what Pamela was saying as well, isn't it, Pamela? Now, look, I've got to. We could talk about this for a long time. I'm going to bring another contributor to the Al Jazeera documentary on, which is Greg Hadfield. How you doing, Greg?
Doing very well, thanks very much, Kristen.
Well, you know all the legal stuff. You've been a journalist, so you know about libel and stuff. So, what would you like to say within what we can say?
The first point I'd like to make is that our response to this has to be a political response, not a legalistic or a bureaucratic response. I know it's important for you to answer allegations against you through the Labour Party bureaucracy. I know the desire to go to court, yeah, but it's got to be a political response. And I'm glad to see Ben Sellers in the audience, and he made a very similar point, because he also has been at the sharp end of Luke Stanger, who, by the way, I hope Mission de Rare are getting paid time and a half or double time on a Sunday. But more importantly, I heard that my learned friends, Al Jazeera's learned friends, are watching as well. Yeah, because Al Jazeera are not short of a bob or two. And I know that long questionnaires were sent to scores of people who have been figured both up front and in the background and have had a chance to respond. It was a bit of a joke, Michon de Rare, saying you hadn't given Luke Stanger a week to respond to things that hadn't yet been said.
Yeah, I felt really inadequate as a journalist then.
Yeah, well, I don't wish to tease them, but, you know, after 30 years in journalism and half of it in Fleet Street, I've never been successfully sued for libel, but that's when I had Fleet Street newspapers standing by me. And I'm glad that we do know that Al Jazeera have the best lawyers standing by them. But now I want to talk about the response. And because of that legal threat, there are things we are not allowed to know. We've all seen, I spent days up at the Shard on the 16th floor with these excellent journalists at Al Jazeera over a period of months, days in Brighton with these excellent journalists. And there's been some question about whether they've had hundreds of thousands of documents or scores of thousands of documents, or just the hundreds and hundreds that I saw. But I know what's in them. I know who wrote them. I know what they say. And therefore I know that Luke Stanger is a larger than life character who's a bit over exuberant, yeah, who's been very hard working. And I hope for his redemption one day and welcome him back into the Labour Party. Labour MP says, 30 Labour MPs, was it? When I went through my hearings, and I know who they are, and I know which ones used headed House of Commons notepaper, which I find weird. But also, I've been through enough suspensions, and I think it was cut, but I think I showed off that I was the most complained about Labour Party member in its history, apparently. Because if you look at some of this rubbish, which redacted when sent to me, but then I learn it's written by Warren Morgan about a meeting that he wasn't at because of his mental health, which actually, Becky, wasn't the first time anti-Semitism was raised on February the 3rd, 2017, as I said in the documentary. Turns out that 10 days after the election of pro-Corbyn candidates, he wrote, Greg Hadfield attended this all-party parliamentary group on anti-Semitism and disrupted the meeting, equating his treatment in the local party suspension equivalent to anti-Semitism. What the Labour Party didn't tell me was, it's from Warren Morgan at the end of the evening, and he says, I wasn't there, my mental health wasn't up to it, And not only did I liken it to anti-Semitism, but I likened it to the Holocaust, when I didn't. I was sitting opposite Sergeant Peter Allen, directly opposite in the front row, Sergeant Peter Allen of Sussex Police, head of hate crime, in a meeting chaired by an appalling representative of Labour against anti-Semitism, Sussex Friends of Israel, and Peter Kyle. And the only contribution I made was when Peter nudged Fiona Sharp and said, Greg's got something to say. The meeting was just wrapping up. The only thing I said, being filmed by Simon Cobbs, who films everything, lots of things we all do in Brighton, sitting next to me, filming it, I said, I quoted from the Chakrabarti report saying there is no widespread racism within the Labour Party. It had just come out the month before. But I stand here as a veteran of the Anti-Nazi League, as a veteran anti-fascist, anti-racist, to express my solidarity with the Jewish community in Brighton and Hove. I was secretary of the Labour Party, City Party. But oh no, it turns out that Warren Morgan, who wasn't there, somehow got this idea of a meeting that was recorded but never published, although I took a sound recording, and it was never put to me. Right. 10 days on, they're secretly using fake anti-Semitism charges for political ends. Now, it's unfortunate about lawyers, and I agree that we shouldn't have a legalistic response. It's important to put it on the record and then communicate it. I've had 250,000 mentions, retweets, likes, and responses in the last 72 hours, for which I'm incredibly grateful. We have to get it out there. And if Michael Crick still wants to get it out there, I stand ready to help him, because he did a good job on Militant of its sort, yeah? Of its sort. Brighton featured in that as well, by the way. But I've tried for 6 years to get some of my friends in Fleet Street. Many of them are senior, very senior journalists. Some of them are editors involved in what is reporting on what is the biggest political scandal in my lifetime. And I'm 66, right? Yeah, so it's a long time, but there's no going back. Let's look at the future, and we now know the nature of what we're dealing with. But we will never find out about who threatened to kill an executive director of the Labour Party. So much so that the Labour Party got in touch with the Metropolitan Police, and that member, we'll never know who it is, that member was then expelled by a panel, but then Starmer's right-hand man said, you can't expel him. And we'll never know who that is, but he's now a full member of the Labour Party. Shocking. And he's been
the whole thing
by MP.
The whole thing is shocking. The whole thing is shocking. And well, I just, I'm really pleased that you could all come on, and I hope Mishcon enjoyed the show, because and I hope that we can carry on talking about. Maybe we could just put Luke Stanger in every show, and we'll at least get another member of the audience to come in. What do you think?
I want to take it away. Sorry, I want to take it away, if I may, from Luke Stanger. He's not a lone wolf.
Yeah.
He's a useful idiot who's outlived his usefulness.